Crusaders and Hurricanes are set to face off under the roof directly after this game on Saturday afternoon. And now, most of you who are regular listeners to this podcast will know I'm maybe not the most optimistic of Hurricanes fans, which is, from a title I think I've earned. But I'm a little bit, cautious, getting my hopes up for this one. Like, obviously, the big factor for me is no Richie Mo'unga for the Crusaders, and they're just, no disrespect to Fergus Burke or Simon Hickey, but the Crusaders have just been a different team with and without him over the part. You think back to the game against the Force last year, which probably cost them a spot in the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman final, where they only scored just over 20 points. Yep. I just think he's such a massive, especially under the roof. It's sort of the perfect situation for him. No TJ Perenara for the Hurricanes, obviously, who's also a massive loss, but at least the Hurricanes have, had a season without TJ, and they be more used to playing with him. And there was a certain other ginger halfback who made his return in the preseason at Queenstown against the Crusaders last week, and Jamie Booth, who I'm hoping to see get a run around on Saturday night. But sort of, which out do you think is more consequential out of those two? Who do you think it affects more?
I think you're right. My notes here, I had, I think the Hurricanes are better placed given they've had that season without TJ. And Mo'unga is just too much of a key for that Crusaders unit. You look at their back line and it's still like, oh, okay, they could easily put 50 on you here. But I think the Hurricanes have got enough that they can go close this week. This is, it's an exciting game.
Yeah.
And one that I'm cautiously optimistic for you Hurricanes fans.
You always got to chuck in the cautiously before optimistic when you're talking about the Hurricanes. But I don't think it could just be a lot of fun too. We talk about the two back lines, like there's just stacks of talent in each. The loose forward trios, like ball carrying power. They're under the roof. It should be fairly fast paced, and with maybe, match fitness levels not being where they need to be for the season as a whole, could see some wide open spaces later in the game and some pretty talented backs tearing through those gaps. Two of the last three clashes have actually been, pretty tight as well. There was the game that went to Golden Point at the Caketon last year, and then the year before, the Hurricanes actually went down to Christchurch and knocked the Crusaders off. There was a slightly different team. Nana Lamape was huge in that game, but still a lot of the same characters for both sides that be going around. Although on the other hand, I do have some fairly horrific memories of Hurricane season openers dating back to sort of that 60-point loss to the Brumbies in Canberra. Yeah. I think they got shut out by the Stormers 2 years ago, lost to the Bulls the year after they won the title as well. So
in the year they win the title, they lost
that was
4 in a row or something.
That was the Brumbies game.
Yeah, it was.
Because we had Phil Kearns, was it, calling them overweight and everything. That's right. Yeah. So they absolutely crawled out of the gates there. Not renowned for the fast starting.
I've got here the Crusaders have won 6. 6 of the last 7, which isn't pretty.
No, yeah.
And the Hurricanes win was 34-32, which is that one down in Christchurch. So, and a couple of big blowouts here. Which I always feel like these games are really close. Like any New Zealand derby game, right? They're really close, and it's the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes where the Crusaders really put the foot down, and it's normally Richie Mo'unga. I think they're...
And even to be fair, although it wasn't ever close, the first meeting last year in Christchurch, I think it was around 2 on a Sunday afternoon, Artie got sin binned, and I think the Crusaders scored 3 tries when he was in the bin, and then they only outscored the Hurricanes by 3 or 7 points the rest of the game. So they had them at arm's length, but it wasn't like there was a very significant mitigating factor there.
Ruben Love's obviously the key for the Hurricanes. I know you're big on Ruben Love.
Huge Ruben Love fan. Not sure. There's getting some whispers out of the camp that maybe Jackson Garden-Bishop's going to get the start at 10, which is like Jackson's a very solid Super Rugby performer, but for me, I don't really know where you're going with him at first 5. Like, he's not going to win your competition. Ruben, he's still incredibly young. He's only played about 15 or 16 games of rugby against fully grown adults, so still got so much room to grow. He's New Zealand, he's got the pedigree. He's a New Zealand under-20s player. I think you just got to live or die with him, and especially he's already got all that flair and the sort of all-round game and the X factor. It's the game management and the organisation that is where he can improve, and that's the sort of stuff you only work on with experience. Like, you're not going to learn that sitting on the bench or playing on the wing. So
you get a huge help with that when TJ comes back. Probably not a bad halfback to have inside you.
And I think an underrated addition for the Hurricanes this season as well is going to be Tay Walden, who I presume will get the first shot at the 12 jersey. But both giving a bit more information. It sounds like he's a very good communicator to the first five inside him, and with hopefully Peter and Jensen can get him back to the form he was showing 2 years ago when he was another star in that win down in Christchurch. So
yeah, but, again, like the Highlanders, there's a lot of options in that back line.
Yeah.
In the midfield and the wings, you've got Billy Proctor as well.
Wes Hurston.
Yeah, Rayasi.
Yeah,
severe. Like,
I'm hoping, like, if nothing else, Geordie Barrett just gets put in the 15 jersey and he just stays there. They go, you're the best fullback in the world. You're playing for, like, watch what you did against South Africa. Just do that. Like,
do you expect any? Given Geordie's come out and said he wants to play 12 eventually, that they'll lose if they lose one or two and then start tinkering.
Oh yeah, like I think just with the injuries you're going to get at this, and like Ruben can play 15, so he'll probably get some game time there. I could see like there's all sorts of different options I could see on the table.
Wouldn't be a bad, inside outside of Ruben Love, TJ inside and Geordie outside. A lot of experience there.
Yeah, it's not the worst problem in the world once again, but I just we've seen this before where you move guys around and they become sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. Like he on form was the best fullback in the world last year. Like in our preseason podcast, I said if I was picking one player to start a franchise, it would be him, and I'd be putting him at fullback and building my team around him. So I'm fingers crossed that he'll see a lot of game time at fullback. But maybe as the season goes on, and he's sort of bulked up a bit compared to where he was a couple of seasons ago, where he was playing a bit of 13. So hopefully we see Geordie's best in the Hurricanes jersey once again this season, because we saw, like, you'll remember the game down against the Highlanders in Dunedin where he scored all 30 points, and
I remember
he is single-handedly capable of winning a game at this level. So if he can do that a few times, the Hurricanes are going to need that. Like, they've got all the talent there, but they're not the well-rounded unit the Crusaders or even the Chiefs or even the Highlanders are in some ways, that they need those individual performances, and they've got certainly two guys in Artie and Geordie who are capable of winning games on their own. So it's going to come down to that as far as I can say. Whether they can do that against a Crusaders team that's, absolutely dripping with talent, I'm not so sure. Few guys, though, we were talking about that sort of 40, 60, 80 process in All Blacks coming back. Sounds like Sam Whitelock, Cody Taylor, Will Jordan, Sevu Reece, David Havili and George Bauer are all going to be limited to, I think, at most 60 minutes this week. So that is, something to note for Crusaders. And Ethan Blackhead is obviously out with the hamstring injury, but they've got you talk about a back line that's got so much talent. The back three for the Crusaders, Lester Fainganuku, George Bridge, it's just Will Jordan was absolutely airborne last season. Yeah,
so what am I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 doesn't go into 3.
No,
So, and we might get to it shortly, but my X Factor player I've got circled for the Crusaders he's probably not even going to start. Kini Naholo.
Exactly.
A huge game, a huge season for Taranaki, and he's got to wait for an injury or something. But I think once he does get his start, he's going to turn into that typical Crusaders winger that's scoring 1,000 tries a game. So
to the Brad Nenial from a couple of years ago and just be all like, the Chiefs are spending too much time scouting locks or something. I don't know how they keep letting all these wingers get out of their region. Because
what's happened to Waisaki? I thought he was in the mix for a Super Rugby contract.
Well, I think he was just training with the Crusaders to try and. I heard that he might be popping up down at the Highlanders again.
Yeah,
but I think he's still available. It's one of those situations probably. Any team picks up an injury in their back three or anything like that, especially
first one, in
the current climate around COVID and all that. You get a few issues. I can see him picking up a contract somewhere. So, someone whose name we'll probably hear sooner rather than later. Not that the Crusaders need him. They've got
they, if anything, they should be barred from signing him. Someone has to have him.
It's not fair, but that he's his brother Kenny certainly could be a big X factor for the Crusaders. For me, this isn't going out on any limbs, but I think it's Pablo Matera, how he fits into that Crusade. He's going to play. He's eligible to play 80 minutes. He's a great little nugget for the Crusaders to have, because he's going to be just free to play all season, pretty much 80 every game. He's not governed by the All Blacks rest and rotation policy that the rest of pretty much their entire team is. So I think he's going to be a real sort of figurehead for them. By all accounts, he's just like the most competitive guy on the planet. He gets stuck into everything. So if he can hit the ground running and fit into that sort of Crusaders system that they've got there, and raise that loose forward tray, especially without Ethan Blackadder, to another level. I think him versus Artie is going to be a lot of fun on Saturday night, that's for sure. So
I agree. He's a scary human.
Oh yeah,
and not one that I'd want to be tackling.
No,
being tackled by.
Not at all. Leave me well out of that. But and then on the Hurricane side, I don't think it's not rocket science. It's Geordie and Artie. I think they're the two guys. I mean, depending on who gets to start in the 10 jersey, I think it probably will be Jackson in game one, just from what I've been hearing. But if Ruben does get the 10 jersey, that's another X factor to watch. But for me, it's the two key players. They're going to need to have huge games. And then over the season, Umaga Jensen's another one who was an All Black 18 months ago, and I think the Hurricanes need him to get back to that sort of level to be a real threat here. But another one where no one was surprised to see the Crusaders open up as significant favourites. Did think, especially with the Moonga news, that the line might have drifted in a little bit. Still 9.5, which, I mean, based on Hurricanes season openers, that's probably fair. But I think with the Hurricanes, the Crusaders' history without Moonga, and all the sort of outside noise, you never really know what the bubble environment's going to do to teams. The Hurricanes haven't looked too far off the pace in preseason. They were pretty good against the Blues, particularly at set piece, which it was a rainy, horrible Wellington day. But the set piece is an area they're going to need to be super competitive against the Crusaders to sort of get a foothold here. So that's something to.
Yeah, circle. I thought the 9.5 was probably a little bit too much particularly for the season opener.
Yeah.
Just like you say, you don't know what you're going to get. They're in a new environment. I mean, it is the Crusaders, so it's very possible.
It's the sort of thing where they win this by 30 and no one bats an eyelid, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Or they win it by 2 and
that's the Crusaders.
No one bats an eyelid. I would have said maybe 6.5, but I mean, I don't know.
Probably makes sense just building in that little Crusaders tax there, though.
Exactly.
If there's anyone you're going to...
The Moonga tax.
Yeah.
The Moonga's not playing, so... it'll be interesting.
It will be. Anything else to add on that game before we take a little hop across the Tasman?
My X factor I thought that Geordie and Artie was sort of a given. So I had Ruben Love. As you say, if he gets a start, he's the one to watch. And then midfield, just keen to see how that plays out and who gets the spot.